What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. Talking today's 10-game NBA slate. It's a big one today on this Wednesday afternoon. Joined today by the usual crew on Wednesday. Of course, I'm Draft Cheat. Joined today by Mangone and AP. We'll throw it to you first. AP, how you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, doing really well. Games last night were a lot of fun. Good to watch. We hit a nice home money line dog parlay with the Warriors money line and the Blazers last night, so that was a ton of fun. Warriors showed up, and they're like a scrappy team right now. They're obviously going to struggle, but they were scrappy and they got it done last night. So, and we get the Celtics again tonight, and Tatum already got ruled out. Sprained his ankle yesterday, ran straight to the locker room. So kind of wasn't surprised that he is sent out tonight. So and we got, slate of 10 games tonight. So it looks like another fun slate. And DC, we got your Timberwolves, who are freaking incredible, against Philly. This should be like an ESPN game. It's on NBA TV. We'll settle for that. But I'm looking forward to watching that game tonight.
Yeah, as am I. Timberwolves have kept it up all year long, and hoping they can pull out the win versus Philly. Mangone, let's go over to you. Looks like you got another new background. You're a world traveler. I don't know what that's supposed to be behind you, but it looks like a nice area you're staying in at the moment. So how else are you doing besides the travels, Mangone?
Yeah, at home, before I had it up, and I was able to move a little bit. There's the Eiffel Tower, right? So, but I'm nice and centered right behind it for our guy JT. And ever since the Eiffel Tower's been up, it's been a good little streak. So I figured we'll keep it up for now. Maybe we'll change it up here shortly. But yeah, I'm on the East Coast in Florida, so enjoying some nice weather rather than being in the cold in Colorado. So that's really nice. And the basketball games were awesome last night, right? It was so much fun to watch those two games. And we got a big 10-game slate ahead of us. And the good news is we got the Tatum and Horford stuff. So we'll have enough of this Boston news. And clearly, we're going to want to play guys from those games. So it feels like it's going to be an all-night event with NBA DFS. And, that's fine by me. I'm excited for it. 10 games. It feels like a lot, feels overwhelming, but I like when it's spaced out throughout the night. I know a lot of people, there's all the talk on Twitter of, should we have late swap? Should we not in NBA? I like the late swap. I like going in there in the computer at the time and making the adjustments and going from there. I at least noticed the EV in my lineups improve, but for me, I enjoy it.
Yeah, probably the late swap discussion, we can save it for a 3 or 4 gamer at some point. 10 games, we got to get to it. It is, I think, interesting. The biggest news on the slate so far, at least, has been the Celtics guys going to be without Al Horford, Jason Tatum, and that game is on an island. It does start an hour and a half after all the other games. And then I think to throw a further wrench in it, the Celtics on a back-to-back, most of their main guys played huge minutes last night in that overtime game, 40 minutes for most of their starters. So it will be interesting to see what they do. I think there's some variance in that game that maybe people will overlook a little bit, but we'll get there eventually. We'll start with the early games, of course, as we always do. We'll go by the DraftKings order of games, and we'll go game by game and break it all down with the news that we do have. We start with the highest total of the slate. No surprise, Charlotte and Indiana sitting at 248. Indiana favored by 9.5. LaMelo Ball remains out. He's been out, obviously, for most of the season, it seems like at this point. And then Jalen Smith and Miles Turner, the two Indy big men, are both questionable. I think there's a decent chance Miles Turner plays in this one. Jalen Smith, I think, is more on the iffy side. And then Mark Williams also going to miss for Charlotte. Charlotte will get, looks like Miles Bridges, who couldn't play in Canada, and Gordon Hayward, who was sick, should get both of those guys back. So a healthier team than we've seen, at least in the last game for Charlotte. Start with UAP. Charlotte and Indiana going to see points in this one. Who are you targeting for fantasy?
Yeah, big total here. Pace should be really nice. Rick Carlisle finally had a moment where he benched almost all of his dudes and threw in. This was against the Clippers. They got absolutely destroyed. It was a good game in the first half, and they came out flat. Bruce Brown sent to the bench, for the likes of like Jordan Nwora. our guy, Benny Mathurin. And so I would expect the Pacers to like bounce back and play pretty well here. Since the midseason tournament, they've kind of gone downhill, and these were spots that I've been betting against. So I kind of thought that would happen. It's happened a little bit with the Lakers, a little bit with the Pacers, and I've been targeting these spots betting wise. But for DFS tonight, this should be. I mean, a lot of each side has teams on the flow chart. Bigs against both teams, power forwards against both teams. The pace is really nice. Hornets, we should get a tight rotation, which is something that we like. And so there's a lot of ways to attack this one. What am I doing with like Bruce Brown? I don't know. If he's going to be chalk, I would be cautious with him. Seems like he could be close to the doghouse. We know how that goes with Rick Carlisle. When you're in the doghouse, you're going to be in there for a little bit. So I would be careful with him. Mathurin is played really well. The price tag's up, though, and if he's not starting, it makes it a very difficult play to target. Miles Turner, questionable. Let me pull this up real quick. He practiced. He was at shoot-around, so I would expect that he would play. And then Jalen Smith, too, now questionable. So that, again, now muddies things up in the front court for the Pacers because Isaiah Jackson has played really well kind of in this role. But when Jalen Smith is back, I mean, he's going to take over that role. Jackson's going to move back to that third guy in this rotation. So on the Pacers side, there's a lot of like, while the spot is decently nice, there's just a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of risk with this rotation right now. So on a 10-game slate, I would be, that's something I would note, and I would be cautious with that. On the other side, we get a tighter rotation, which is really nice. Terry Rozier has been playing some pretty good basketball. He's had some monster games. He had that stretch of like 60, 54, 51 against Miami, and then, the Pelicans. So, again, like some of these guys are playable, but given the Pacers, like the uncertainty around the rotations and just how volatile that they can be, I don't really see any locks on their side. And then on the Hornets side, I mean, do we like if any of these guys are chalk? I never trust it on the Hornets side. Nick Richards should be back tonight. PJ Washington was in a really nice spot, but now with Nick Richards back, like I think Nick Richards is fine. Miles Bridges is 8,500. So Glock had the tweet of the day, in my opinion. Like, look at these prices. Like, inflation has hit DraftKings hard. Some of these prices are ridiculous. Like, they're insane. Like 8,500 for Bridges. I mean, that's a big price tag. So again, I don't think any one of these guys are like lock type plays. They're going to be in my tournament pool. If one, hits my lineups, I'm fine with it. And so, traditionally we look at a 248 total. We're like, oh, we got to target this game. We got to go all in. We got to stack it up. I don't think that's the case tonight with this spot.
Yeah, I've been saying it all year with the pricing inflation on DK. It's made it much tougher. I mean, it's getting to the point now, Mangone, where you get a good value play like a Zach Collins, and he's like legitimately like 80% owned in tournaments just because there's no other good value play. So I think it's a little bit of an issue, but we're all playing with the same rules, is what it is. And I do agree with you, AP. Like, despite the 248 total, you would think there would be more kind of surefire plays in this game than there actually are. I think Terry Rozier, my favorite play in this game overall as it stands at the moment, just with the huge upside he brings. I know the price is high on him too, but he's earned it, at least compared to some of these other guys. But Mangone, your thoughts here, Charlotte and Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte and Indiana, clearly it's like one of those games I always say, like, is Indiana on the slate? Yes, right? So if Indiana's on the slate, we have to look at it. We have to consider it. It's unavoidable, right? So looking at some of the price tags on these options here, I mean, for one, you have to obviously like some of these Hornets. Nick Richards is obviously a spot that we've been playing a little bit as of late. Now, can we stomach 6-1? That's kind of one debate to talk about. Like kind of AP said, like it's expensive to pay 6-1 for Nick Richards right now, which also keep in mind, if it's expensive for all these plays, when a value shows up, like you talked about, like a Zach Collins, it's way more coveted to have that value play. And also, if it's a fringe value like Mamu Diapo or whatever the dude's name is on the Celtics that we had last week, like maybe it's time to be cautious with that value. Like yesterday, I loved Zach Collins. I was like, he's a great value, clearly. Sandro, I was like, I don't know. He's fine. I ended up playing him at the end. But point is, we definitely have to like think about the values when they emerge. And if not, then we have to consider some of these mid-tier options a lot more and play more balanced builds. And Brandon Miller and Nick Richards seem like balanced build plays on the Charlotte Hornets that I'm going to want to consider. Miles Bridges is 8.5. Could he get there? Yes. But do I think it's expensive? Yeah, I think it's a little too much for me. So it's really Nick Richards and Brandon Miller, I think, on that side of the ball. On the Indiana side of the ball, Buddy Hield at 5'8". You can make a pretty strong case for him as an interesting tournament play. Charlotte is a team that I feel like you can kind of space it out a bit against. You go up and down the floor a ton, and the 3-point ball can be open a little bit more, and that's where Buddy Hield thrives. My problem is, do I want to pay 5'8" for Buddy Hield, a 3-point dependent shooter? That's one of the things I'm running into. I prefer buying low more on someone like him. So I feel like on DK today, I'm probably going to stay a little bit away from him and some of these other Pacers options, just because, again, the price is really high. If you look, like Tyrese Halliburton's 10.9. I can't afford that today. Miles Turner at 7.2. Could he get there at 7.2? But I just feel like it's not the best use of my salary today. So it's a 10-game slate. We also have value later on that we might not really know what the best value plays are. Like, for instance, the Celtics situation. Do we know who the best plays are going to be based on the starting lineup? But we don't have that starting lineup. So having some of that flexibility today might be nicer. So do I want to lock into some of these plays in this game? Not exactly. So I think you can make a case for a couple plays, but that's really it. And that's normally shocking to say about an Indiana game, but it's because it's a 10-game slate and the pricing is tight and value is super important on this slate. Also, let's say we don't have value, or let's say DC, let's say it's like 6:30 and we get news that someone else is questionable that we weren't expecting. That value could become even more valuable later on, where I might not want to lock into these plays.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. We'll keep it moving to the next game, Minnesota and Philadelphia. Obviously, two of the better teams in the league so far this season. Both teams should be pretty much healthy for this one. Robert Covington, Marcus Morris are questionable. Nick Batum has been ruled out, so I guess Philadelphia a little bit thin on the wing, but they've got Tobias Harris, Kelly Oubre, Melton, all those guys, so they should be good to go. Obviously, the Covingtons and Batums of the world don't do a whole lot anyway. It's been, of course, the Joel Embiid show. One thing to note about the Sixers, AP, they've had a really, really soft schedule in general, which has led to a bunch of blowouts. But, like, I think we've pointed out before, I mean, Charlotte, Detroit, Washington, Atlanta, Washington again for the Sixers. So I think some of their kind of per minute numbers lately are a little bit inflated. But on the other hand, they haven't gotten the full run, and Embiid's been putting up the monster scores even just in 30 minutes in most games. I do expect this game between Minnesota and Philadelphia to be close. I think it'll be hard. I think both teams play hard in this one. I think the defense will be there to some extent. So I don't know in terms of DFS where we want to go for Philadelphia and Minnesota. Certainly looking forward to watching the game. But I'm not sure there's a ton there for DFS in terms of value. What do you see Sixers and Wolves, AP?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. This seems kind of like one of those measuring sticks kind of games where each team comes in maybe a little bit more motivated, trying to prove something. And then, Anthony Edwards, we talked about it yesterday, just, the tweets that got dropped and everything. The Up to Lock show was hilarious. By the way, with Big T and JBC yesterday. But then Edwards goes nuclear yesterday. So maybe, maybe not having that pressure over his head kind of helped him out there. But yeah, I think this is, Anthony Edwards, this is like one of those games where I think the matchup is this is definitely going to be one of the tougher matchups for Joel Embiid. He's been playing really good basketball. It's been insane, but you're right. Like a lot of the matchups, look, like just pull up the game logs.
Crazy.
Charlotte, Detroit, Washington, Atlanta been getting destroyed by bigs. Washington again, I mean, he did get it done against the Lakers. That's a tougher matchup. I mean, Embiid's just been putting up monster numbers. He's going to be unowned on the slate. He really is. The problem with these studs is if you pull up the slate sort of by value, there literally is none. There is like no value. So to pay like 11.6 or like I'm looking at, I think Luka has a big night tonight. We'll talk about that. He has monster nights against the Clippers. It's so hard to fit him in. Like there's no value. There's literally no value at all. But I do think someone like Anthony Edwards is right kind of in that range to where he's playable. But the problem here too is if we get that and I think the spread is kind of indicative of it as well. Or not the spread, the total 225. Vegas thinks that we see a little bit more defense here, and that's how the Wolves play. That's how they've racked up a lot of wins. They've been very sound defensively. So the problem from a DFS standpoint is both teams healthy. They have all their dudes. Pricing is just insane. Everyone feels overpriced. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns, the guy that's not. So it's a really hard game to play DFS wise. I don't see myself getting too many pieces here. And that's probably how I'm going to play it. And it's going to be one that I watch, but I probably won't have too much as far as DFS goes.
Yeah, that's my lean too. I do think, and you said it, AP, you will get Embiid, I don't know, sub 3% here, I think, with the matchup against Gobert. People aren't going to want to play that, play the matchup with the price tag, all that stuff. And I don't know. He's done pretty well against Gobert in the past. And I mean, Mangone, he gets a couple fouls on Gobert in the first 2 minutes, and all of a sudden it's a good matchup because I don't think Towns can handle Embiid, and I'm not worried about Naz Reid. So there are definitely ways that Embiid could get there. I'm seeing, in the chat, people saying he's matchup proof. Yeah, it's hard to argue with it. And he hasn't played many minutes. So this game is close. You could see Embiid push toward 40 minutes as well. I think he's an interesting play if you are looking to get different. What are your thoughts here on the Wolves and Sixers, Mango?
Yeah, I think the big struggle with Embiid is like, listen, if someone said to me, hey, I'm playing Embiid today, I would not be like slandering Embiid and saying he's bad. I would be saying, okay, if you're playing Embiid, what values are you playing to pair with him? That would be my actual first question, why you're playing him. Because, we sometimes have people that are in chat, right? And like one question yesterday, it was like Jason Tatum or like, it was just like a really crappy, like fringe play versus like Al Horford and Jaylen Brown. And I was like, it's clearly Al Horford and Jaylen Brown just because that secondary play is so much worse. Now, if Embiid goes for 80 or 85, listen, of course, I'm signing up to play an 80 or 85 fantasy point day, and I'll figure the rest of my lineup out and go from there. But you just have to believe that that's going to happen. You have to believe that he's just hitting the ceiling performance and that's it. I have trouble paying that when I kind of ran everything on Sabre, right? Ran the Sims. I mean, there's not one player below 5K in my 20 lineups to start out for my single entry stuff, right? That just is crazy. And at the end of the day, there could be news that pops up later on too, that I know I talk about backloading a lot and I haven't talked about it as much as past years, but I think this is a night to, if value opens up and people are locked out of it, that's going to be huge for me. So I'm not opposed to kind of waiting on that and hoping that something could open up on that end. There are some plays that can open up and there could be surprise stuff too. Obviously the Donovan Mitchell stuff too, which we'll get to, that's a really big piece of news that we're waiting on as well. So I don't see myself getting to this game. I will get to Embiid if we get a ton of value that opens up. And then on the Timberwolves side, I don't see myself playing Cat or Gobert. I think you can make a case for Anthony Edwards on almost any slate because his upside's good, but you got to make the case that his floor is a little bit rough. But the thing you could be doing today a little bit is you could be playing some balance builds and then looking for those guys that, yes, they're expensive, like Ian Edwards at 9K, but they have the ability to get you like 55 or 60 DK points. Those are the type of plays you might be looking to hunt for a little bit today in your tournaments. And Ian Edwards is one of those guys at 9K. He's got one of the higher ceilings at this price than some other players, right? I mean, so I'm not going to argue with someone that wants to play Ian Edwards. You could go for it, but for me, I'd rather kind of stay away from this game overall. If someone wants to play Embiid, though, go right ahead and play Embiid. But the point I keep getting at, DC, is I think news is going to be super important on this slate. And I just don't know how much I want to lock myself into early plays because of how tight this pricing is.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I do think if you want to get crazy and play a Edwards Embiid stack and hope for a close game, overtime, you'll get the combination of the two. I think below 5%. Maybe you just bank on hope that value opens up later. There are ways to play it. Obviously, this game's not going to be highly owned, and there are studs that can absolutely crush. So that's Minnesota. Philly, we'll keep it going. We got two more games here in this early 7 p.m. Eastern time window. Next game we'll talk about is, I think, the lowest total on the slate, Miami and Orlando. This one in Orlando. Orlando is favored by 5.5 over the Heat's 219 total. News for the Heat: Jimmy Butler and Kevin Love both going to miss this game. Now, Miami has gotten healthy otherwise recently, getting Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero back. Kyle Lowry will be ready to go in this one as well. And then the Magic side, is this Carter's first game back? I believe so. Yeah, he's been out for much of the year, hasn't played in a month and a half. He'll be available in this one. 5,400 for him. I haven't seen a hard minutes limit on him, but maybe you guys have information there that I missed. But AP, an early game with a pretty low total. So I think even despite the Miami injury news, Jimmy Butler, obviously a big piece for them. I still don't see a ton that I love from Miami. I mean, Tyler Hero all the way up at 8,800. Kind of crazy price tag for him. You see anything here, AP, that you're looking to get into your lineups, Miami and Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, the one positive for Tyler Hero was he came back and played 33 minutes against the Timberwolves, looked pretty good. Usage was just insane like it was, at the start of the year. But the problem is Orlando, they play slow. They play a lot of defense. Mm-hmm. As you said, low total here, 219 and like almost 9K. This dude was out forever. Like, come on, DraftKings, like give us a little something to work with. So,
sure.
and when you're talking about a guy who relies on, raw points, raw scoring, that's a lot of risk there. So very difficult for me to get to someone like Tyler Hero, Jaime. I mean, 7-1. That's again, like Caleb Martin, 7. These price tags are ridiculous. Bam Adebayo, 9.5. I mean, the Heat here in a tough matchup for me, like across the board. Like I don't think I'll have a single Heat player in any of my lineups. Like, I mean, the pricing is just ridiculous. We got to play someone though. We got to play someone. We're gonna find some players that we can get to. Wendell Carter, like the price tag is really nice, 5.4K. But again, another situation where a little bit unknown what his workload is going to be. Goga, like they have Mo Wagner, they have Goga. Like the Magic, even though they're without Ingles tonight, they are a deep team and they're fine running 10, 11 guys out there. And just like to show how bad the value is on the slate, like Jonathan Isaac, who's 4-4, who plays like 14 minutes a game, crushes in his 14 minutes. Like he's been playing good basketball, but they're handling with him with kid gloves, rightfully so. Like he's popping. He's hitting some builds that I saw, and it's like, man, that's when you're struggling for value. So I'm off the Heat here. Wendell Carter is interesting. The matchup is brutal against Bam, like absolutely brutal. And so it'll really come down to the projection there. I think, the one thing, too, about the Heat, they have been worse defensively. They get Bam back. That should help them, but now no Jimmy. So that, again, is hurting them. Franz Wagner, I would love to play in this matchup, but 7-7. He's right in there in that fringe range. Same with Paulo. I don't have anyone here as a priority play. Would I be upset if like a Jalen Suggs or one of these guys landed in my lineups? No, I could see that happening, but no pieces from this game will be a priority play for me.
Yeah, all makes sense. Hard for me to play 4,400 Isaac at like 14, 15 projected minutes, but it is just is what it is, Mangone. You got to consider those types of plays, I guess. Carter, I agree with AP. I think he's interesting. I certainly don't think the minutes are a lot, given that they have, 3 other guys that can play at center with Goga, Mo Wagner, and Isaac. But, yeah, 5,400. There's some upside there. And, someone in chat did point out, coming off a finger injury, so at least in theory, shouldn't be too limited. But your thoughts here, Mangone, Miami and Orlando?
Yeah, in theory, should be conditioned. He's also 5.2K, which feels like a nice little discount compared to what he's been in the past, right? We've paid 6.8K for Wendell Carter Jr. against like the Charlotte Hornets, right? I don't want to play Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac just doesn't seem like a good option, especially if he's gaining some ownership. And the whole time AP was talking about that game, I was thinking of that meme, right? I ain't reading that. Like, he just talked too long about that game. I'm sorry for whatever happened. I don't know much to say about this game. Like, Tyler Hero's
my bad.
Like, what do we? But I'm with you, AP. Like, Tyler Hero was one of our guys, right? You and I talked about him at the start of the season. Like, his usage was great, and I saw Tyler Hero was back, and I was like, nice. Can I get a discount on this guy? And no, I can't get a discount. So, DC 10 games. I think we should just move on to the next one.
All right, yes, sir. We'll move on to the last game in this early window. Reminder: hit the like if you haven't yet. Hit the subscribe button. Get all our content here on the Run Pure Sports channel, and I believe we are still running the promo code Giblets44 if you want to get 44% off your first payment over at Run Pure Sports, weekly or monthly payment. Giblets44 will get you there.
So hey, real quick, DC, I heard it's ending on Christmas. So if you haven't used it, use it now. It's going away. That I promise you. I know we joke about it all the time, but it's going away Christmas. So we got a few days left.
Absolutely, and certainly a big weekend of sports action with NFL. Is it 4 out of 5 days we have NFL games, I believe. Of course, we got the big Christmas Day, NBA slate, all that good stuff, college football bowl season. So a good time to join the movement. Giblets 44. All right, let's talk about Utah and Cleveland. I think we're finally to a game here where we may have some plays, at least on the Cleveland side, because they are a little bit shorthanded here. Obviously, Darius Garland with a serious injury. He's going to be out a while. It's been Donovan Mitchell who's stepped up, had some not enormous games, but big games with Garland out. But now Mitchell himself, I think, is at risk of missing this. He's listed as questionable. But yeah, he's got, I think, a couple things going on. He got a little bit dinged up with the shoulder in the last game. He also played 45 minutes in that game, and now he is questionable officially with an illness. I don't think he was at shoot-around. And we've seen a lot of people miss games recently due to illness. Kind of seems like there's a bug going around the league. So I kind of think there's a good chance Mitchell will miss this game, AP. If he does, Cleveland is very, very short on guys who can create, who can handle the ball, create for teammates, create their own shot. I think it would be Karis LeVert who stepped into that starting role. He would become obviously a very popular play, but for me, essentially a must play if Mitchell misses and LeVert starts. And then Mitchell himself, if he does play, I think he's interesting. I know he's 10K, but opposing ball handlers have crushed the Utah Jazz. They really don't have anyone to contain someone like Donovan Mitchell. Could also go for the revenge narrative here if you wanted to play that with Mitchell. So, yeah, Cleveland is interesting outside of those two guys too, missing Evan Mobley, of course. And then Utah, they did get Walker Kessler back in the starting lineup last game, so I think he's at least worth talking about. But, yeah, go ahead with Utah and Cleveland, AP.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the games that we can play and we should play. Donovan Mitchell, like you said, questionable, did not practice, which, is with an illness. And I don't think that they need him against the Jazz here to win this game. I think Karis LeVert and how this team plays, Jared Allen, and then you got guys that like the one thing too, and I'm very high on the over here, and I don't even care if Donnie Mitch plays or not. Like Cleveland they're shooting a ton of threes. Like it feels like 50 plus threes a game. It's insane. And it kind of makes sense. You have like Georges Niang that can come in. Sam Merrill's been really good. You got a lot of guys, Max Strus, Dean Wade, a lot of guys that are just spot shooters. Get them open, get them the ball, let them shoot. And so if we get some average shooting here, I think it's a good spot for overs. But if Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, then I think the game becomes far more competitive, and it's going to be one that we have to prioritize, starting with Karis LeVert. The big debate then is Sam Merrill, who's been really good, versus Craig Porter. So, like, my take is if Donovan Mitchell's out, Karis LeVert, your primary ball handler. Like, Sam Merrill, not really that guy. More of a shooter. Craig Porter then becomes much more viable as kind of that backup ball handler, in my opinion. So, 7 p.m. Eastern game, we're going to get this news. And so, yeah, we'll be fine there. On the other side, and then Jared Allen, obviously, very much in play. On the other side, too, like, I've been playing Walker Kessler over the last few slates, and he's, like, always unowned. It's insane. And it's like this Jazz team, I will say there's no rhyme or reason to the rotations. It's absolutely insane, but 6,200 for Walker Kessler. If he starts or even if he doesn't start, he's still getting decent minutes here, and I like this spot. The Cavs are just so much better defensively when both Mobley and Allen are in there. When it's just one of them, I feel like they take hits defensively a little bit. Lauri Markkanen, 8-3. That's, again, a big price tag for a guy that really isn't playing more than 30 minutes. Could be a little extra motivated here, but it comes down to can he smash in limited, minutes. Colin Sexton, another guy who should be very motivated going against the Cavs. I think he's very much in play as well. So this is going to be one of those spots where on the slate where pricing is somewhat egregious on DraftKings, a mini game stack could make sense. Not something I do, too often or prioritize, but just kind of thinking through in my head, a Colin Sexton, which with, if Donovan Mitchell is out, Karis LeVert kind of in that small forward spot. Like, you could make a little mini game stack out of this one. So this game going to have a lot of pieces that I like. We sit, we wait for the news. Once it hits, then we readjust and we move forward.
Yeah, you got to like this game one way or the other, Mangone. I think it gets obviously way more interesting if Mitchell does sit. I do think Mitchell is going to sit this game out, which obviously opens up a lot for Cleveland. And with Mobley out and, with some of these guys out for Cleveland, I think the Jazz are interesting plays too. So I think this is one of the better games of the night, at least with the information we have now. What are your thoughts here, Utah and Cleveland, Mangone?
Yeah, I know I talked about, hey, like, we're waiting on news, and this is one of the pieces. And we'll have this early enough where it'll help with some decision-making. But I do think this is a really important spot because if Donovan Mitchell is ruled out, that's going to be huge, right? There's going to be plays that open up that we're going to have to look at. So if you look at the Cleveland side, obviously a really good Karis LeVert spot, 6.2K. You can't ignore him. Max Struss, 6.6. He would definitely be in the conversation. You can make a case too. Jared Allen, 7K. He does have to deal with Walker Kessler, which can be a bit of a problem. But I think overall, I would be perfectly fine with Jared Allen. I prefer the other two guys that I had mentioned a little bit more. And then we start to get to these other options, right? What do we do with Dean Wade? Listen, we get cautious with Dean Wade at 3-4. I know there's going to be more usage to go around, but Dean Wade at 4.8, I'm good. I don't need to go there. Isaac Okoro 5.1, not as excited about him. The guys that start getting excited for would be Porter Jr., Sam Merrill, and you could make a case for a Georges Niang. Georges Niang is fine, not one of my favorite plays, but I think he'd be in the conversation there as well. So those would be the three. I assume it'd be Porter 1, Merrill 2. I think those would be the two main values that I would want to look at. But I think the starting lineup, that could impact some of my decision-making with it for sure. If one of those guys is coming off the bench, that might have me a little more cautious towards it. Or I might look at the situation and say, okay, maybe Karis LeVert is in there, and they have Cam Porter just to be the secondary ball handler, and he could close based on whatever starting lineup they have put out. So overall, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really looking at Porter Jr. and Sam Merrill as values that could emerge, along with Karis LeVert, who would be one of the stronger plays on this slate if Donovan Mitchell's ruled out. And also Max Struss would be another option that pops a bit too. So those would kind of be the four guys I would key in on. And I think LeVert and Struss would be the first two to look at. And then those would be the two values I would consider.
Yeah, I think that's fair. How many Cavs is too many? So someone pointed out in chat, I missed the opening line, but the line is, Cleveland was 7.5 points favorites to start the day. Now with the Mitchell news down to 4.5, pretty good indication, assuming that's true, that Mitchell might miss this game. I mean, to me, LeVert is essentially a lock if Mitchell misses. Porter's probably in my lineup. I think Sam Merrill, good chance to make my lineup. And then Max Strus, I think, is a good play as well. Can you play 3 or 4 Cavs in the first game of the night, Mangone, on a 10-game slate? Is that something you'd be willing to do, assuming Mitchell is out?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we could have like no value emerge, and that could be frustrating too. And you could look like an idiot. So I just wanted to look now and see how many, and I know it was only a 4-game slate, but how many Spurs were on the winner last night, right? And if I look at the $15, I'm looking at the first place. I noticed on the first place team and the second place team, it was 3 Spurs. And one thing I would at least note is when it comes to like Sam Merrill or like a Cam Porter, like you're playing them because they're values. Like a great example of when values I wouldn't consider like as part of the team is like, do you remember the Thanksgiving slate where all those Packers were popping, right? There was like 1 million Packers on every single team at receiver and they were dirt cheap. Like that doesn't count as a value. I mean, that doesn't count as a Packer in my opinion, because you're doing it because what it can do for your full lineup. One reason you're playing Cam Porter or Sam Merrill is because you're playing it because of what it does for your full lineup. Same with like Sandro yesterday. I didn't play Sandro because I love the Spurs. I played him because, man, there wasn't any value and I needed that cheap price to get someone else in, and he graded out well. So like I kind of said in Discord yesterday, I would probably play 3 Spurs max, but I think you could have gotten away with 4 Spurs as long as Sandro was one of those Spurs. So I think that's how I would say it with the Cavs. Like if you got those values in there, that's fine. But like if you're playing, and by the way, Cam Porter Jr. will start if Donovan Mitchell is ruled out, which is weird to have that come out, but that makes me just think more and more that he's going to be.
Mitchell's not playing in this game, man.
Yeah, he's not playing. Really, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So Cam Porter seems like the number 1 value on this slate now and the best play.
I would lock him in all formats. Wouldn't you guys? Like with no value on the slate? It would be like yesterday with what's his name? The center.
Yeah, so
Zach Collins. Yeah. So
AP, a great way that I would do this, and I was talking with someone else about it, and he brought up he basically made me realize that Zach Collins was a lock. I mean, I typically don't love to lock in every single play. I like to kind of allocate it out a little bit better. But I went and I was setting a max on Zach Collins, and then he said to me, I pushed down Zach Collins' projection like by like 2 or 3, and I was still getting like 90 to 100%. And then my thought process was, okay, he's just that strong of a play. What am I doing capping him at this point? So then I just got 100% and kept 100%. That's what I would do with Porter. I would take whatever projection you have him at, lower the projection, and see how much he still pops. And then from there, that will show you how good of a play he is on this slate. I think that's the best way to do it, AP.
Yeah, I think for me, it just this dude. I can't remember what slate it was.
He's a good player. The Sixers,
dude. He's a baller, man. And this is the perfect look at what Dinwiddie and Cam Thomas just did to the Jazz. Like, I think I would lock him if he started. If he started, I think I would lock him. If he didn't start, then yeah, I don't think I would lock him. But I do think that would be the move that I would make.
Yeah, assuming Mitchell does miss this game, I'm loading up the wagons on the Cavaliers. You got to remember just how good this matchup is. It's about, it's a top 5 matchup in the entire league. And nice thing is, I mean, we haven't talked much about the Jazz side. There's some pretty solid run backs on the other side. I think Sexton is fine. I think Horton Tucker's okay. Walker Kessler, if he starts, I think is a pretty good play. So potentially a really, really good game here between Utah and Cleveland.
Don't forget about, all right, you guys are gonna make fun of me, but with the slate lacking a lot of value, Jared Allen, gets in foul trouble. It seems like quite often, did last game. Tristan Thompson, their other big there. They're gonna need some bigs against the Jazz. So he's 3.5K. It is absolutely dusty, but the value is that bad on the slate currently.
Such good analysis.
It's not crazy.
Tristan
It's
Thompson
not
is
crazy.
the equation.
I probably won't do it, but it's not crazy. I just wish they do we know if they have I guess Damian Jones has played. I just wish they had virtually no one to back him up. It would make me feel a little bit stronger, but yeah, that's the one thing I wish they at least had. They had no bigs to cover him, I guess.
Yeah, they've been I think he got in foul trouble against Houston, against Şengün, and Tristan Thompson played 18 minutes. I mean, he sucks, guys. He sucks,
Yeah.
but I saw him popping in some scenarios I ran. So
I get why you're considering it. I just wish, like, if there was garbage time, like, I wish I knew he was for sure the guy, because I think it could be Mobley. Like, I was just looking for outs, right? That's kind of my thought process with it, but it's not a crazy thought process because, again, we are lacking value. It's brutal out here.
Absolutely. That's Utah and Cleveland, certainly a big game, and news that, thankfully, I guess I actually kind of prefer, I wish it was in Utah so that we could get some of these guys a little bit lower on, because everybody's going to jump on the Cavs, obviously, if Mitchell does miss. We'll keep it moving, though, to the next window of game 7:30 Eastern time, Denver and Toronto. It is Denver favored in this one by 4, 229 total, and should be pretty much two healthy teams here. Aaron Gordon probable to play. I would certainly expect him to be in there. And then, yeah, pretty much two healthy squads going at it. Obviously, AP, the Joker, is always in play. I really think kind of no matter the matchup or really anything else. Maybe not a perfect spot for him here, but you'll get him low owned. Not as low owned as Embiid, I don't think, but certainly low owned. But yeah, two healthy teams. It's just hard for me to get to these guys on a 10-game slate. But your thoughts here, Denver and Toronto, AP?
yeah, I mean, this is one reason why, the Raptors have a guy like Jakob Poeltl. We saw the matchup twice since Poeltl joined the Raptors, and Poeltl played 32 and 27 minutes, matched up against Jokic, and actually had really good games. 38 and 40 DraftKings points. This is one of the more intriguing plays for me because 5.8K, like when I look at Wendell Carter, basically the same price tag, very tough matchup, a lot of depth for the Magic. I think Wendell Carter could potentially be higher owned than Jakob Poeltl, and I like the spot for Jakob Poeltl, assuming that we see a similar rotation in this matchup that we saw last season. So 5.8K, I think he's like a nice value, and like you said, he's not going to be owned at all. So I think there are a couple intriguing center options kind of in this mid-tierish range that I think are very viable on the slate that currently lacks a lot of value. So Poeltl, a guy I have some interest in. I'm struggling to get up to like the Jokic's, and in that range, I think I just would prefer, if I can get up there, I would prefer Luka. Luka has absolutely smashed this Clippers team. So that's kind of where I'm going at the studs. So I'm off Jokic on the slate. Denver, they're pretty healthy here, so it's a little bit tougher to play. Like Aaron Gordon, the price tag's fine. Michael Porter, the price tag's fine. If one of those guys falls into my lineups, I'm fine with it. But I think the Raptors play them tight here. I think it's a good basketball game, not one that I have a ton of interest in for DFS purposes, outside of actually Mr. Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah, it makes sense with Poeltl for me. He's going to have to be in there, assuming he can stay out of foul trouble and all that stuff. Mangone, your thoughts here, Denver and Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to play Jokic, but you know what I mean? Like, you just can't, it's too hard to with the price tags, right? Like, I just can't get up to him right now. And if I did go up to him, I'd probably want to go to someone like Joel Embiid. So, yeah, I don't think I will end up getting there. And it's tough to place, any of these other Nuggets options, right? Like, you could make a case for Jamal Murray, right? Like, I guess at 7-2, I'll give you that. That's the one guy I'll say. Like, he has the ability to get you 55, 60, right? And I talked about like trying to find these options that have ceiling performances. So that's one option that I think maybe you could put into the mix. But other than that, I'm gonna stay away from them. The Toronto side of the ball, yeah, there are some decent options here. Like Dennis Schroeder at 6'2". We know what his ceiling can be. Like, he's shown it recently, right? Against the Knicks only a week ago. He gets you 48 at 6'2". Just finding some of those plays because of the lack of value in tournaments makes a ton of sense. So I do think that Dennis Schroeder, not the worst option to go to. I know they're going to need to play Jakob Poeltl more minutes because of the matchup, but I just don't think it's necessary to take the chance on him in this spot. You could make a case for an OG at 6.3K, but again, I don't like the floor enough. And I think some of these Raptors, like, their floor is just so brutal that I don't know if it's worth the risk. So overall, I think I'm going to stay away from this game. Maybe Jamal Murray, though, at 7.2K. The more I talk about it, like, it's just the ceiling is just interesting there at the price, right? So that's the only guy I'm really considering.
Spencer and Jo in chat. You guys need to take it to the slab or take it to the ring or something. Just going after each other in the chat.
Did we have to ban someone too? Like, what am I missing?
Yeah,
I don't have chat up.
Yeah, I had to click the ban button there for.
Yeah, if you have to put him in timeout, DC, that's all you.
Man,
me.
come on, chat.
Take care of those people. Throw them in the slab or throw them in the ring and get them to go out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll move on to the next game. The other one in the 7:30 window: New York Knicks and Brooklyn Nets. Biggest news here, I think, is the Knicks center situation. Obviously lost Mitchell Robinson a few games ago, and now Jericho Sims, who was starting for them, will also be out in this game. Should be Isaiah Hartenstein who gets the start, but we also thought that when Robinson went down and it was Sims. And they do have AP, Mr. Taj Gibson, recently signed. I don't know. I wouldn't be that shocked if he drew the start here for the Knicks. Knicks also potentially without Josh Hart. He's listed questionable, and it looks like Brooklyn should be a full go in this one. So, yeah, interesting game. Obviously, we'll have to wait for the starters and see if Josh Hart is in there. But assuming Isaiah Hartenstein does start, I think he'll be a pretty popular value play at 5,800, I believe is his price. Yeah, I would assume it'll be. I think Julius Randle is also interesting here. I like the matchup for him. Could also potentially get some minutes at center, which I always like for Randle. So, yeah, a couple guys I'm looking at there from the Knicks. Not a ton, I don't think, from Brooklyn for me, but talk to me, AP, Knicks and Nets.
Yeah, I don't have the flow chart up, but Hartenstein should be on it. Otherwise, it had to be really close because centers have done very, very well against against the Nets. And yeah, there's a lot of center flow chart spots, but a couple things here. One, it's like the second we start talking about New York Giants, New York Knicks, who pops up in chat, our guy being there. It's just like anytime we talk about any Texas team, it could be a high school Texas team. Our guy VIP somehow pops in, and no, we love our team homers. That's what we're all obviously all about. But Hartenstein, 5'8", he played 38 minutes against the Lakers, and I mean, Tibbs is going to run his guys out there. Like when Hartenstein got in, he let him cook basically the entire game. So I like that call. I think Hartenstein a really nice play here, and then pricing like 8,700. That, like, when you look at all these other price tags, it's like really for that guy, where like Caleb Barton is priced within like the range of Julius Randle. It's insanity. It's absolutely insane. Like Lauri Markkanen, who barely plays 28 minutes, is priced like the same as Julius Randle. I mean, this price tag makes sense. Julius Randle in this matchup, great play. Like, and we've seen these Knicks games. I think it was it was you, DC. It was without Mitch Robinson. The Knicks defensively just haven't been as good. And the games, like, look at the total, 232. I mean, all Knicks games used to be like, these totals used to be really, really low, and they're starting to come up, and you get better game environments, easier buckets on each side. So I think this is going to be a great game to target. I still have been playing that rule or implementing that rule of Randle or Brunson, and I'm pretty fine with it. Both have about the same price tag. But then, yeah, on the Knicks side, it's Hartenstein. Spencer Dinwiddie is playing some ball right now, 7-7. Fair price tag. Like, that's a good price tag for him. Like, that makes a lot of sense. I think Spencer Dinwiddie or him or Cam Thomas very much in play. My preference, though, is probably Dinwiddie just because you have more of a floor from a peripheral standpoint. But Cam Thomas is a bucket. You just need the raw points from him. So, again, another good game. Nick Claxton on the other side, too, a fine play as well. Pricing in this game is appropriate. It feels really good versus like some of these other games, like mainly, Miami and Orlando. I mean, which is kind of ridiculous. So this is another game I have a ton of interest in. I think it's going to be a good game to watch as well. Knicks favored by 1. This will be a good game to target.
Feel like the pricing inflation is real, Mangone, except for the Knicks, who, Brunson, Randall, Quickly, They just don't move. They just kind of stay at their prices. So that makes them relatively, I think, better values than a lot of the slate. Certainly very interested in Julius Randle, Hartenstein. I think Brunson is a pretty decent play. He usually goes overlooked. Yeah, the Knicks look good to me, and Brooklyn has some pieces too. So pretty good game here, Mangone. What do you see, Brooklyn and New York?
Yeah, let's start with Jalen Brunson, because I mean Jalen Brunson has looked great without Mitchell Robinson. And people might be wondering, well, what's the reason for that? And I think the main reason why is because there's more spacing now, right? There's not Mitchell Robinson and then down there clogging the paint as much. Now, of course, he doesn't get those screens as much, but he can get them from Julius Randle enough where you can do the pick and pop. So I think overall, this has been a plus for Jalen Brunson. And at his price, 8.6K, he's one of those guys that I talked about, at that Ant Edwards level price where they have the ability to break the slate. They have a good enough ceiling. So I really like Jalen Brunson. Let's talk about the values though. Probably one of the better values in this game is Isaiah Hartenstein at 5.8K. I mean, the dude is just really good when he's on the court, right? If he played for the Detroit Pistons, he would probably cost $8,000 because of how much he would just do, right? I mean, it's just, this is a great spot for him at 5.8. So I'm interested in him, especially with the lack of value. So he's definitely in the conversation for me as a good value on this slate. Julius Randle at 8.7. I don't mind him. I think he's perfectly fine. But I think I prefer Brunson to him if I have to pick one. RJ Barrett, I don't think has been as much of a beneficiary as some of these other options. It seems like what's happening is now that Mitchell Robinson's off the court, you have these other ball handlers coming in and Brunson stealing more usage. And it's kind of just coming from RJ Barrett. I think Emmanuel quickly at 5.2K. I think you make a case he has a really good ceiling at the 5.2K price tag. But the argument you can make is the floor and the minutes are kind of low, right? If his shots aren't falling, someone else like Dante DiVincenzo could steal that closeout run a little bit more, or a Hartenstein could stay in there instead if they don't go or the small ball lineup. So understand that the Quickleys and the DiVincenzos, they have a good ceiling, but their floor is low as well. So you probably can't play all of these guys or a couple of them together. You just have to kind of be a little cautious with how you play them. I know Josh Hart, he was questionable. I don't know if we have that status yet. If he happened to miss, that would be a huge piece of news and make those guys even better plays. And then I haven't talked about it yet, but we should talk about Taj Gibson. I don't know when we'll stop talking about him. I hope it's not 2027 and we're talking about Taj Gibson as a value in the NBA. If Tom Thibodeau is coaching, you never know. But if you told me Taj Gibson played 15 to 20 minutes at 3K, I would consider it here. So I think it's one value to look at what the ownership is. And if people are starting to play the Taj Gibson thing, I'm out. I don't really want to do that. But if no one's going to do it, I don't know. I might take a gamble on it. But the way I'd rank him is Hartenstein number 1, Quickly number 2 for me as a value. And the stud that I really like on the Knicks side is Jalen Brunson. I think he's a really good play. On the Brooklyn Nets side of the ball, I do think we get a really good price tag on Mikal Bridges, 7.5K. It is the Villanova duel, as someone said in the chat. All these guys played at Villanova or whatever. And, they got to get up for this game a little bit, right? Battle in New York as well. So I think Mikal Bridges at 7.5, really strong play at his price. You can make a case for a Cam Johnson at 5.8. He has a ceiling there, but he also has a bad floor. That's another thing to kind of call out. I want his ownership to be low. Feels like one of those guys that's only going to be 5% tonight. So why not get a little bit of exposure in tournaments? So I don't mind him at that price tag. And then Dinwiddie and Cam Thomas, I just don't feel like spending the price tag of 7.4 and 7.7 for them today. It just feels a bit pricey for me. And then, I think that's it overall. Dorian Finney-Smith, I want to make a case for at 4.6. My only issue with him is they're a little more crowded now. I think the Knicks will play big, so you'll see the Nets play a little bigger. And the minutes just haven't been there. But it's an interesting price tag if I knew he was going to get 25-plus minutes. Problem is he just hasn't been getting them.
All right, that's New York and Brooklyn. We'll move to the Lakers and my Chicago Bulls, although I have to hang my head in shame, AP. I moved off the Kobe White train for the first time in 7 games, and our dude did it again. 50 burger against the 76ers. Didn't love the matchup for him. Didn't matter. 49.5 DraftKings points for Mr. Kobe White. Kind of seems like people are finally starting to buy into this guy. I'm seeing a little bit higher projected ownership for him. Not a bad matchup for him here against the Lakers, who do have their 2 stars questionable. I believe, LeBron, Anthony Davis, both listed as questionable. I certainly expect both to play, but you never know for sure. Caruso will be in there. Of course, they remain out without Zach LaVine, which it's really been a rough stretch for Zach LaVine's stock, just as an NBA player, seeing the Bulls play so much better without him. Other than that, most of the guys should be in there tonight. What are you doing with the Bulls and the Lakers, AP?
Yeah, our guy, Kobe White, been balling. Matchup is good against D'Lo. I like the Bulls tonight. I think they win outright. And I think it's on the heels of, again, like a good performance from Kobe White. This, for me, though, we're getting now more ownership. Like, Kobe White's literally been unowned, and he was much cheaper than what he was on the slate. Now he's getting some ownership. And I'm not saying I'm fading him or anything like that, but I think, I think it's time to zig. I think we zig to DeMar DeRozan. I like this spot for him. He's had some big games against LeBron, against the Lakers. I think DeMar DeRozan, 8,100, kind of where I'm at. And Vucevic. Like, I don't like attacking Anthony Davis. Not one of the best spots, but again, you got to like the rotation that we're getting on the Bulls side. So, and the other nice thing too is I'm not playing Io. I'm not playing, Patrick Williams. It's really like the big 3 here. It's Kobe White, DeMar DeRozan, or Vucevic. And I don't know if we're going to need a punt with like a Drummond or whoever that. Tristan Thompson. I'm kind of backpedaling there. I think those are going to be bad plays. I think we'll find some value kind of, and I think it will come here shortly. So I don't think I'll be playing those type of plays. But yeah, give me DeMar DeRozan, and I don't have a lot of interest in the Lakers side of this game.
Yeah, I like that call. I think DeRozan a strong play here, and I'm with you. I think Chicago does win this game. Mangone, your thoughts? Lakers and Bulls.
Yeah, Kobe White, and he just keeps crushing it, right? And I mean, I've talked about it all show, DC, right? I'm looking for guys in this like kind of range that have the ability to get 50 DK points, and this dude has just done it night in and night out, right? So I'm not ignoring him here, especially against the Lakers, where I like targeting the Lakers guard. So I really do think Kobe White, good play here in this spot. DeMar DeRozan, 8-1. I mean, I don't hate DeMar DeRozan here. I think Kobe White's a better play. I know they're different positions, but I think DeMar DeRozan is fine as well. I don't love LeBron and Anthony Davis. I just think against the Bulls, slower pace team, I don't think it's a great spot to spend on those options. And it's already tough to spend. And I already talked about other guys like I'm having trouble getting to. So I don't think I'm going to get to AD or LeBron here in this spot, even though I believe it is an Anthony Davis like homecoming game, right? I know he's been good or whatever, but I think he played in Chicago or when he was a kid or in high school or whatever. But Kobe White's really the guy that I'm looking at here. When it comes to some cheaper options, like, man, I mean, Caruso, I assume he looks probable, right? Yeah, he's going to be in. So there's nothing really there. I know he's been in and out of the lineup over the past week or so, and that's opened up some guard value like Io DeSumo, who's been doing cardio, but I don't think I'm interested in that. So I guess for me, DC, it's really just Kobe White or bust. I guess you could make a case with the lack of value. I mean, Andre Drummond, they're going to need his size, but like, I don't know. It seems really hard to kind of get on anyone in this game.
Yeah, I'm not really on the Lakers side, but I do think the Chicago side looks pretty good. Let's get to the last 3 games of the night. We got Atlanta, Houston, Clippers, and Dallas, and then, of course, Boston, Sacramento to finish us off. We do have close to 400 people watching. You need to get the lights up. It's a hurtful number at the moment, so if you haven't yet, if you're enjoying the show, please do us a favor. Hit that like button. We'll get the plays of the day at the end of the show, assuming we get enough likes to give them out. Let's get to the final game here in the 8 p.m. window. Atlanta and Houston, 233 total in this one. Houston favored by 3 at home. We do have news on the Atlanta side. They're pretty thin on the wing. Bogdanovic, the questionable, he missed the last game. We saw Sadiq Bey play 42 minutes. You can expect about the same if Bogdan does miss another game. They're still without AJ Griffin and, more importantly, Jalen Johnson. On the Houston side, Tari Eason, Jason Tate, and Amen Thompson are all questionable to play. Not huge news with those guys. But, worth mentioning, of course. Let's go back to you, AP, for Atlanta and Houston. What do you got for us?
Yeah, Rockets have been incredible at home. I think they've lost one game. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So it makes sense that they're favored here. I actually like their side. And then play wise, Jabari Smith, the price tag's nice, kind of 6,100 right there. Trae Young has been he's been absolutely crushing, but the price tag's up there 10-5. If you think we get one of those back and forth type of environments, Trae Young is definitely in play. But I guess my mentality on the slate is like, if I'm getting up to that range, I'm going to continue to ask myself, can I get to Luka? Like, is there a path to get to Luka? Just because I do think Luka is the one guy at that position where we could see some nice separation. But if you land on Trae, I'm not going to talk you off of it because Trae's been optimal. It seems like multiple times. I mean, look what he's done. Like 59.5, 64, 68. I mean, the guy's been absolutely crushing. And the matchup is tougher here, but he seems to be kind of matchup proof right now. He's just doing a lot. I'm going to be under on him, though. If you have a read on it, if you think he stays hot, not going to talk you off of it. DeJounte's been much tougher to play, obviously. The other thing, too, is like playing centers against Atlanta has been very profitable. Şengün, the other reason why I'm struggling to get up, especially at the center position, to like a Jokic, I could play Jokic Jr. in Alperen Şengün, 8,600. I don't think he's going to be owned at all. And this is a matchup where centers have put up some monster numbers. So if Şengün put up like a 55 piece, like he's done multiple times this year, I would not be surprised at all. He's definitely going to be in my tournament pool. I actually have a lot of these. So we list 5 players in our tournament pool at center, and I'm having a tough time organizing or ranking them basically because there are a lot of options in that mid-tier and upper mid-tier range that I like at the center spot. So I'm not playing Capella or Okongwu. You got to like their rotation right now. It's pretty nice, but their prices are definitely elevated. I don't like the spot as much against Şengün here.
Yeah, makes sense with Houston and Atlanta. Let's go to you, Mangone. What do you have between these two teams for us?
Yeah, so a couple things. Like, I think some news breaking could affect some plays and open up some interesting value. So obviously the Bogdanović stuff, that would open some of the Hawks' wings. You can't argue with like a Sadiq Bey at 6'6". I mean, it feels pricey, but he'd be in play. A Hunter, he would make sense. And usage would go over to DeJounte Murray at 8'5", which I think his ceiling would be good. Problem is Trae Young is 10'5", and it's like, listen, it's a tough price tag to get to. If we have more value, maybe I'll get there. But it's really those like wing guys that I was kind of talking about. The Houston guys I want to discuss a bit. And I'm not saying I'm going to backload and prioritize this news, but if I have opening spots on my teams, I think there is some interesting news here that could help some plays out. So I agree with what AP said about the matchup against Atlanta for centers is great. So Şengün, one of those 8.6K guys that I think has a really nice ceiling that could crush in this matchup. One of the problems that we have is there's some good values at center, so it's tougher to pay up at your center position. But this is where I think we could get some value. Tari Eason and Jae'Sean Tate are both questionable. If one of them sits, I think some value opens up here for some of these options. The question is, who are they? So if you told me one of those guys sat, I think at 4.2K, Jeff Green is not the craziest play. It sounds gross. If you look at Popcorn Machine, the last game, he went in for Şengün because he got into foul trouble early. But some of those prior games when Jae'Sean Tate was out, he was the primary beneficiary there of him being out. So if Jae'Sean Tate is out, I mean, again, Jeff Green is going to be a thinner value play than most days, but if one of these guys are out or both, I think you can make a case for it. Also, if let's say Jae'Sean Tate is out, but Tari Eason is in, Tari Eason is 6'1", but the usage that he just commands is insane. He absolutely crushes. In a matchup against Atlanta, I mean, this is when the guy could play 24 minutes and have 40 DK points. So I wouldn't completely ignore it. Dylan Brooks's minutes, I think his minutes are really safe right now. The issue I have with them a little bit is what's the ceiling? And we saw it against Memphis. He got the 38.75. But if you wanted like a secure minutes guy at 5'4", last piece in, and both those guys were out, I don't think it'd be the craziest thing in the world. So I think some value could emerge here late that we're not expecting. And it could be enough to get you an upgrade at one position, to get up to like a Jalen Brunson, who we just talked about, right? One of those like really good plays. Maybe get you enough salary to get up to like an Anthony Davis, who in that last game has the ability to get you 60 DK points and give you a different construction. So I know Jeff Green is crazy. I know Jimmy B is saying, what year is this? And I agree. But I did notice recently that Jeff Green's minutes have been in the high teens and low 20s. And it's because if Jayshawn Tate is out, it's going to affect him. Like, just go on a popcorn machine and look into it more. Don't just look at that last game. Look at the games that Jayshawn Tate was out. Like, he could just emerge as a value. But also, what can happen is once we have this Cleveland value, we might not even need to worry about some of these other value plays. But some people like to jam in studs on all their teams, and they might just be looking for a small value play.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And yeah, don't overlook Houston, especially if their guys are out. Kind of like the Tari Eason call if he is in there and Tate is out, especially. That does make some sense with the upside he brings, and really a perfect matchup for him too, getting up and down the court with Atlanta. Two more games to talk about. The big one here, Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. We've mentioned Luka a few times throughout the show. I think his prop is like 58 points plus rebounds, assists, something crazy like that. Obviously a huge spot for Luka. Yeah, no Carmelo Anthony tonight, fortunately, on this slate. Luka, obviously in a great spot, 12.2K with Kyrie out and all the other guys out for the Mavericks as well. But the bigger news, I guess, is the Clippers side, potentially without Paul George and Norman Powell, who both missed shoot-around due to an illness. Again, illness going around the league. We've seen a lot of players miss due to this, especially when they miss shoot-around. I think there's a pretty good chance one or both of Paul George and Norman Powell sit out, which opens up a lot of usage and minutes, ball handling, all that stuff for the Clippers. I think Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, who has picked it up recently. We've talked about it a lot on this show. Clippers have really turned it around recently. And then potentially Russell Westbrook, if both of them miss out, I think he would – I don't know if he would start, but he would be in line, I think, for 30-plus minutes if they were both out. So, yeah, Clippers, very interesting spot. Obviously, if you can get up to Luka, go ahead and do so. He's probably going to have a monster game tonight, and maybe we'll have enough value with the Cavaliers news to do so. Don't know that yet, of course. But let's go over to UAP. Interesting game here, I think, between the Clippers and the Mavericks. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so Paul George, as you said, missed shoot around, illness. I think there's a good chance. I think he does sit tonight.
Yeah.
Speculation, obviously. But again, last time he sat, it was an Amir Coffey that got the spot start. Amir Coffey, not a guy not like a great producer, but he was awesome against the Warriors. Warriors, obviously a decent matchup for him. But the Mavericks, not like the best defensive team either. So I think you could make a case for Amir Coffey. Obviously, we've talked about it all show. The slate, starving value, but as we've been talking through it, I do think value is starting to open up. So I would kind of work under the assumption that we could see a guy like Amir Coffey get the start in the spot. James Harden, he's been balling. He had that two-man game going with Zubac in a nut spot against the Pacers. That was fun to watch. And then I think Kawhi Leonard. I think Leonard's going to be an awesome. I think it's a spot where like Luka and Leonard kind of put on a show. So if I can find ways to get Luka, I want to. It's very difficult to do on the slate. But Leonard, 8,700, phenomenal price tag. He should be considered a really a building block type of play, working under the assumption that Paul George is out.
All right, let's go to you, Mangone. What do you got for us? Clippers and Mavericks.
Yeah, Clippers and Mavs. One thing I noticed today when kind of just opening up the slate, I was like, okay, we're somehow interested in Derek Jones Jr. Like, he's clearly a guy that people are going to be going towards at 5K, which, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's the best play, but I understand we're just lacking value, right? So not excited about him. I am excited about Luka, but I promise I just don't have the value, right? I'd love to play him. That's gonna be one of the issues. We'll see once we kind of get this Cavs value that opens up. I know Luka was still kind of popping on some teams for me, even despite the lack of value. So I kind of want to see how it enters the mix with Cleveland. But if people are still struggling to get him, I might take a chance on it. I think Luka's one of the, if it's Luka or Embiid today for me, I would go Luka, right? Like I just think he's the best stud on the slate. So no one's saying, I don't think anyone's really disagreeing with that, but I would like to pay for Luka. He's definitely a stud that's, pretty good on this slate. If you are missing Paul George, well, dude, Kawhi Leonard's role is really good. Again, I talked about these guys in this 8K range that have the ability to just get me those, 50 to 60 DK point games. And I think there's opportunity here for Kawhi Leonard at 8.7K. So I'm interested in him. I don't think he's a bad option. I know James Harden has looked a lot better, especially with Paul George out. Could be a good spot for him. So I think Kawhi and Harden enter the mix as studs that I want to kind of have some exposure to later on that I think could be really good plays. So I think other than that, I think I'm pretty good here. I don't want to mess around with any of these Mavericks centers. Like I don't need to take a chance on Dwight Powell at 4-4. Maybe if he was like 3-5 or something, that would be interesting. I know we're starving for value, and sometimes I mess around with Daniel Tice, but I don't think that's the slate for it. So, I think overall, I'm just going to stay away from the most of the plays except the studs here. And I hope Paul George ends up getting ruled out. And if Paul George does get ruled out, I guess I should look at Norm Powell's price. I know he's dealing with some stuff too. He's 5.4K. To be fair, he would kind of come into the mix as long as he's in, but that's stuff we kind of have to wait for. And it's not things I'm like backloading and preparing for, right? I'm not saying, I really hope this pops up because I think with this Cleveland news, it just could be too good a value to pass up. And I might not worry too much about these later plays.
Yeah, I think that's the right approach with Clippers and Dallas. Let's get to the last game of the night. It is on an island, starts 90 minutes after all the other games, 90 minutes after Clippers and Dallas. Boston and Sacramento. Boston on the second half of a back-to-back here after the overtime game against the Warriors last night. Big minutes all the way around. They're going to be missing Jason Tatum and Al Horford here. They will get Kristaps Porzingis back, who I think is an interesting play. Total and spread, Sacramento favored by 2.5, 236.5 total. Just one piece of news on the Sacramento Kings side, Malik Monk, questionable. Pretty big news, though. He's a very important player for them, high usage guy, does a lot for them off the bench, obviously. Back to UAP, I think Boston is really, really interesting, at least coming into this. Well, we'll see on Donovan Mitchell. I think Boston and Cleveland are kind of the two, I think, most interesting teams on this slate. Obviously, you take a super heavy usage guy like Jason Tatum out. There's a lot to go around. Al Horford does a lot for this team as well. We saw, is it Niehaus Keita? I think of someone there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played some big minutes, has looked pretty good for Boston. He's probably going to get some run tonight. And then I kind of think all the Boston starters are in play. Derek White, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Jaylen Brown. Good team to target in a really good matchup against Sacramento. Fun game here to end the night. What do you got for us, AP?
Yeah, I was, on the Warriors betting wise yesterday. I'm back on it on the Kings. Got it early. I think the spreads moved quite a bit, but yeah, I think like you hit it on the head at the start of the show. Just Boston played like their starters played so many minutes, and so I do think there could be some risk here. But again, with Tatum out, that usage is going to spread to guys like Jaylen Brown. Derek White was incredible yesterday. I mean, the dude is just an absolute machine from range. Porzingis, he's going to help things out too. But it's kind of figuring out the other pieces here. Lamar Stevens, Sam Hauser, he's had a good role, but he's 5'3". It's not like he's like a traditional value piece that you're like, oh yeah, this guy's out. We can play Sam Hauser. He's 5'3". That's like a for his role, like a starter's type of price tag. So I'm not rushing to play a guy like that. We don't know what they're going to do. Like if a guy like Keita got run, I mean, he would be like the guy gets in foul trouble anyways, but Sabonis would abuse him down low. So you got to think we see a lot of Porzingis here, a lot of Jaylen Brown. I will say like Drew Holiday has been deferring. Big T talked about it yesterday on the Up to Lock show. This might be a spot where he has to take over the game. Does that mean I really want to play him? No, but the matchup is really good. Everyone else on his team has been getting it done except for him. he might have to have one of those takeover type of games for them to keep this one competitive. So I do think this is one of the trickier ones to tackle. I think it could go in many different ways. Jaylen Brown, the price tag is way up there, which I like because otherwise he would just be like an obvious lock and move on play. But at 8,800, you do have to think about it. But Jaylen Brown obviously going to make for a fine play. Derek White almost 8K is kind of insane to me. But again, Boston, they usually run a pretty tight rotation. So if you land on some Derek White, I don't hate it. And on the other side, I wouldn't, can we get to Fox? Can we get to Sabonis? I think we talked about a lot of other plays that we like a lot more. And so I don't think I'm going to have a lot of this game. I hope that this game, we don't get that back and forth. I think the Kings, they've been very good at home. I think they take care of business. And I think our guys spread, I think they'll be lighting the beam tonight with the win over Boston.
I'm on the Kings here as well. What about you, Mangone? What do you got for Boston and Sacramento?
Yeah, the only thing you didn't mention, DC, is it's a Neemias Queta's revenge game, right? So, maybe he's got some revenge tonight on the old Sacramento Kings. But, I'm not super excited about too many Boston options. I mean, I think Porzingis in tournaments isn't crazy at 8-2, and I think Jaylen Brown's solid, but some of those other price tags in the Celtics are a little tougher pills to swallow, so I don't know if I'm excited about them. And then Sacramento side of the ball, if Malik Monk misses, I actually think the beneficiary now is Keon Ellis. I think he's going to be the guy that really benefits a ton, and I wouldn't hate him at 4.2K. But that's not, again, something I'm not like planning for. It's just like if I happen to have the opportunity to play him, I wouldn't totally hate it. Also, I guess Keegan Murray, he's priced up 6.8. I know he's, he posted up Jordan Poole the other day, and he's been kind of like showing his bag off a little bit more, and he's just evolving a little as a player, but his price tag has gone up. So I think I'm good on that. Listen, even if Harrison Barnes somehow pops, I'm not biting on that bait at 5K. I just don't care I don't care what the metrics say about his, how Harrison Barnes was 3 seasons ago. I'm out on him. So I think it's mainly those Celtics studs, and that's about it. There's a lot of other good plays we've talked about on this slate, so I don't know if I'm getting to too many others just because they've kind of priced up some of these plays for the Jason Tatum ankle injury.
For sure. That's Boston, Sacramento to cap it off on the 10-game slate. Let's do plays of the day. Obviously, we're waiting on a bunch of news still. We don't have the Cleveland news quite yet, but we'll do our best with plays of the day anyway. We'll start with you, AP, your gentleman's play of the day. Muted.
I went the whole show. I'm gonna stay with Chicago. We've been hitting these pieces very nicely. I'm going to go DeMar DeRozan, though, 8,100 DraftKings.
Love it. DeMar DeRozan, AP's plays of the day. Let's throw it over to you, Mangone, your play of the day.
Hey, we just got word Donovan Mitchell ruled out, so that is official. DC, I was going to – who was you go first, because I have 2 plays of the day, but I'm worried I could be taking the one that you have, but I like both, so I want you to go before me.
Man, this is going to be – a lot of Cleveland in people's lineups, including mine, but I think one guy that maybe goes less owned than some others, Mr. Max Strus, I think has a big game for Cleveland. He's priced up a little bit at 6,600. I just think he's going to have to get some buckets in this one. So I'll go with Max Strus as the mom's basement play of the day. Mangone, I don't think I stole yours with Max Strus, but maybe. Go ahead.
No, you didn't. But I was going to say this guy because you've been touting him up. You said you got off the train, and I figured when you get off the train that's treated you well, you go right back on, right? Yeah. And again, I've talked about it all show, right? I want these guys in this like 7 and 8K range that have these like really nice ceilings. And man, Kobe White, it's hard to argue with what he's been doing. I always like targeting the Lakers with guards. So Kobe White, he will be my play of the day.
All right, that'll do it. Members, we do have Final Countdown already going on, taking you all the way up to lock, breaking down all the news. I'm sure a lot of Cleveland talk going on early and often in that one, and getting you set for tonight's 10-game slate. Another big slate tomorrow. I believe we've got 8 games on Thursday. This show will be back same time, same place. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we do appreciate it. Hit the like and subscribe on your way out if you haven't done so yet. And for AP, for Mangone, I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.